and thank you very much for being here at this very important event. I'd like to also echo the thanks to the candidates for being here and for taking the questions. Tonight's forum will be in two parts. First off, are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. It will start with a question and answer session where each candidate will be either given a 1 minute or 2 minute period to respond depending on the question. And prior to reading that question, I'll tell you this is a 1 minute or this is a 2 minute, so the candidate can know how much, to prepare for the question. There is a timer in the front row that the candidates can see, and candidates, you do see the clock right there, the stopwatch, the countdown, and when time is expired, the timer will raise her hand with her very colorful phone, and that will be the signal, and trust that you will see that. If not, then I will gently remind you that time is up. To be as fair as possible, we will alternate who answers the questions first, and we'll start with the candidate closest to me for the first question. Audience, excuse me, thank you very much, as I said, for being here. We're going to ask that you keep your response to questions at a minimum. The organizers received questions covering over 20 topics from the community for tonight's forum. And unfortunately, we don't have enough time to answer them all, but I've reviewed them, and there are 20 pretty good, there's a bunch of good questions on a bunch of topics that I think that will be of interest to all of us. I also think that the less time that we spend waiting for the audience to quiet down, sorry for using that phrase, the more questions we'll be able to hear. So whereas there are some forums that are debate, this is going to be a series of questions. Each of the candidates will get a chance to respond, and we'll go from there. And the hope is that we'll all learn a lot about what their positions are on a number of topics. And then the second part of the forum, after that, will be a chance for you to meet the candidates. They'll be stationed at the front and the sides. They've got their campaign literature. I'm sure they'll be very happy to engage with you on questions that you may have about how, if they're elected, they might be able to improve your life and the life of your children. And I think we can all agree that that's why we are here tonight. So, with that, let us start with the first question. This is going to be a 2-minute question. Candidates, this is going to test your ability to manage your own time, because I'd like you to introduce yourself, and I'd also like you to segue into this question. What are you doing to prepare yourself to be able to hit the ground running as a school board rep? So this is going to be a 2-minute question. Please introduce yourself, and what are you doing to prepare yourself to be able to hit the ground running as a school board rep? And we'll begin with Erika.
Thank you so much, and good evening. I think you can hear me. I was told to lean into the microphone. My name is Erika Ogedegbe. That's actually way too loud. A resident of Leesburg. I've lived in Leesburg for 20 years, and I have 3 children who have all been in LCPS schools. I come from a family of learners. My parents met in Teachers College way back when, and when my mother was looking for a community to raise me in, she picked one that had great public schools. And when my husband and I were looking for our family, we chose Leesburg because it has great public schools And as a multiracial family, having a welcoming and inclusive community is also very important to us. In terms of what I'm doing to prepare, I think the number one thing that I'm doing is talking to families. So I'm spending a lot of time knocking on doors, talking to people, and who I'm meeting at the doors are families, parents, teachers, administrators, and they all have great perspectives that are important for me to know about. And then also doing some homework on policies as they are written or as they are being proposed, but I can't pretend to say that I know everything about every policy that's in place because there are a lot of them. So I also come with experience that I think will help me be effective on the school board. So I have 30 years of experience in higher education, and that professional experience and management experience has prepared me with the ability to work collaboratively with others, often across differences of opinion, and still being able to get things done. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, number 2, Michael Rivera.
This is like congressional hearing type stuff here. It's super bright, I can hardly see anybody. But my name is Michael Rivera. I'm running for school board here in the Leesburg district. Before I start, I want to thank my family. My wife, Paula, my son Gabriel, and my daughter Olivia. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do this because my wife is at home holding down the fort and making sure that everything gets done since I'm not around. So I am eternally grateful for that. I'm a public servant. I work for Loudoun County Sheriff's Office. It's my dream job. It's not the pinnacle of my earnings, but that doesn't matter because if you're not happy at what you do, it doesn't really matter how much money you make. I love serving the community. I'm a dad. I've got 2 kids, and I got involved because it's time for some change. We need to refocus what we're doing in the public school system. We need to get identity politics out of the classroom. So day one, it's not a lie, we're going to be drinking from a fire hose. That's a fact. I'm not going to claim to know everything going in. I have Robert's Rules of Order sitting on my table and I glance at it occasionally. It's very confusing. I'm hoping that someone will be able to help me through that. But I think most importantly, my number one goal is to interface with the folks that did not agree with my campaign, that said nasty things about me for whatever reasons, because if I cannot figure out how to build bridges with the people that disagree with what I campaigned on, I'm not going to be successful. And I'm hoping to engage those folks that helped me to get to the board, as well as people that were not my supporters, to build a coalition of parents and citizens to move us forward.
Thank you very much. And number 3 here is Lauren Shernoff. Please introduce yourself and tell us how you're going to hit the ground running.
Good evening, Leesburg. Can you hear me okay? There we go. I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for being invested in what's happening in our schools currently. I also want to take a minute to thank the PTA. They've graciously put this event on and given us a platform to speak, and I'm very grateful. And they truly represent the partnership between parents and teachers that work behind the scenes to make schools a successful place and to do the fundraising and all the work that makes our schools go. So I just really grateful for that, and thank you for having us. I'm really humbled and honored to be here. I never really thought that this is where I would be or be sitting. This wasn't like a dream of mine to be on the school board, but when I started to see the political tug of war that was happening in our classrooms, I was really paying attention and sitting up, and that's what I've been doing to prepare. I feel like I've been preparing for this for the past 15 years. I'm a public educator. I've been a public educator for 15 years. I'm a teacher first at heart, and my career has brought me to this place because I can't sit by anymore when children's academic outcomes are being influenced by the climate that we are facing. And I really think we can do better by engaging one another and having those conversations. And that's what we've been doing. Since January, we've been working really hard to get the word out about a potential new way forward. Putting an educator on the board, someone who understands our schools, who is in our schools, literally on the carpet with your children every day fighting for outcomes. And we've been speaking to voters as well. We've been knocking doors, we talk to families, and people are awake. They know what's happening. And to me, that's a benefit that's come out of this. People really do want what's best for their children. And of course, I want what's best for mine. And I'd be remiss to say I'm a wife and I'm a mom to two beautiful girls who attend public schools at Tolbert Elementary.
Okay, terrific. We are off and running. Thank you very much. This is another 2-minute question, and we'll begin this time with Michael. How do you believe LCPS should approach the issues of gender, sexual preference, pronouns, and access to school restrooms? What, if any, mandate should LCPS enact in addressing, supporting, or affirming gender issues? And again, it's a 2-minute question. Would anybody like me to repeat the question, or are we clear on what it is? Okay, so Michael, the time is yours.
So this points directly to the most recent VDOE 2022 model policies. And the problem that I observe is that people are not reading documents. Everybody's going on hearsay and social media. So the VDOE 2022 model policies put out by Governor Youngkin say, schools shall respect all students. The 2022 model policies adhere to the First Amendment. There are laws on the books that say a parent has a fundamental right to make decisions concerning the upbringing of education and the care of the parent's child. And the schools may not abrogate the rights of parents. So these are very important things. There's also in the Code of Virginia, prohibits unlawful discrimination based on gender. So there are laws on the books that protect LGBT kids. Now what happened, and nobody wants to look at it from this perspective, is that last year, the Northern administration unilaterally made a decision to delete parents' rights by keeping them out of their children's mental health issues. So to address the question, do we need to look at this as a policy? Absolutely. I need data. 0.5% of the population of Virginia identifies as transgender. Apply that to the school system. That's about 400 kids. Distribute that across 90-something schools. That's about 4 kids from schools, 4 kids per school. So we turned the system upside down for 4 kids per school, on average. I want to see confirmed cases of transgender children. I want to see medical diagnoses. Who's determining this? Not hearsay, not conjecture. And I firmly believe that all children need to be treated properly, not bullied, not discriminated against. But the route that was taken by the Northern administration was the wrong route, and we need to fix it.
You have 2 minutes to answer this question.
I think that this is a very nuanced and sensitive topic. I think we're seeing that in this culture. We are living in a very polarized culture. And for me, I look to my educator lens, and for me, bottom line, hard stop, every child deserves to feel safe, protected, free from fear, from discrimination and hate in the schools. It's vital. It's vital to their learning. It's vital to their success, and it is vital to their well-being. And I think that when you think about children being able to learn, you need to take into account what they are experiencing and what they are going through. Now, as Michael has said, this is an ongoing, evolving situation. And as a leader, it's important to take in the information, not always have a gut reaction. And I understand there is a lot of emotion behind this. It is a charged issue. There's a lot of personal people that are being affected by this. And so that first reaction, we kind of need to cut through that. And right now we are in a time of transition. We don't know what's going to happen at the state level yet. We are looking at what these model policies are going to be. We are thinking about whether or not we have to be in compliance. And right now we're in a public comment period, which we've seen over 50,000 people have commented. So that's pretty significant. And we need to be making sure that we are looking at what's the state asking and how do we align, but how do we always keep in mind that kids need to be protected in school. And then the other layer of this for me is the parents, because if my children were going through this, I would want to know. I'm their legal guardian, and I think we have wonderful resources in our schools in place to navigate these conversations with parents and to make sure that kids feel safe at school and at home. We can do this together.
Thank you very much. And now, Erika, your turn, 2 minutes to answer the question.
So first I'll say that Policy 8040 that is currently in place in LCPS was put in place to support and protect students who are really honestly vulnerable and marginalized. And yes, it is a small number of students, but students, all students, need to feel welcome and safe in order to learn. And it is, it is unfortunate, but there are some students who sharing that at home and sharing how they are identifying is not a safe situation. And we know statistically that there are, not just nationally, but locally, a higher proportion of LGBTQ youth who are unhoused and who die by suicide because of what they face when they do come out and they're in unsafe situations or in, not just at home, but also with other community members through bullying and other things and so forth. So I'm concerned with the policy as it's been proposed by Governor Youngkin. It is in current public comment period. There have been a lot of people who've expressed concern about the language, who've read that very carefully and are concerned about what is being proposed. I think it's also important to recognize that, these are our community members, these are our friends and our family. I grew up with a mom who is gay, and what I hear from folks is there's this sense of, deviance. It is 2022, the EEOC, iPads for federal school reporting, they've all added, non-binary sex as an option for reporting. So this is, thank you.
The next question is a 1-minute question, and we'll be starting with Lauren. So again, this is a 1-minute question that will be starting with Lauren. Some in the room believe that the current reading curriculum is not very good. What is your plan to drive policies to help the children who will not benefit from the new curriculum, such as those in current grades 2 through 7? How do you help the kids that are still passing, but either on the low end or who hate reading because they were never taught the basics like phonics properly? So has everyone heard the question? Everyone locked in? Okay, so 1 minute, let's begin with Lauren.
Very unfair, I only get 1 minute for this. If you know my background, I'm an ELA, English Language Arts facilitator for the county. I am working as an integral part of this transition as we adopt a new curriculum that supports the science of reading. Through COVID and through evaluating the current curriculum that we use, we are seeing significant gaps, particularly with our English language learners who are at a 36% pass rate and 50% for our students of special needs. Even though we're carrying the weight overall 80%, that to me that's just unacceptable. Teachers do so many things in their job. One thing that you may not know is just the varying levels that sit within a classroom, especially we're talking elementary right now, we're doing a K-5 overhaul, and teachers really have to know their students, they have to be in relationship with their students, they have to use data to drive their decisions, and for me, in 1 minute, it is just vitally important that this review happen, that it get rolled out with fidelity, and that teachers are supported as well as students of all ranges, and I could talk for 3 hours about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lauren. You did a lot into that 1 minute. So okay, Erika, your turn with that question.
Great, thank you so much. So think there's been recognition that what we've had in place hasn't been working, and there's been a lot of discussion about students who haven't been prepared as they've progressed through their schooling. And at the same time that Loudoun was evaluating a new path forward, the state also has been working on some revisions to the curriculum. So right now, what's been challenging is it's a timing thing. We don't want to move forward fully with the county if the state does a different direction, and then you've got teachers moving one way and then having to change right away again. So there has been a phased approach for rolling out changes. I think the most important thing also is to make sure that as there are schools that are adopting new practices, to see what's working and not working for the students, to help inform the rest of the rollout and take a very thoughtful approach for that rollout, and do whatever we can to speed that up if things are going well. Keep rolling out and get a new method for instruction. Thank you.
Thank you. And Michael, now your 1 minute to answer this question.
So I would never claim to be a literacy educator, and I would hope that Lauren would assist me in figuring all this out. So, but there's some basics of reading comprehension, phonics, word recognition, fluency comprehension. What concerns me more is that just recently we went through stats at a board meeting, and we continuously compare LCPS to other schools. Well, that really doesn't tell you how LCPS is doing. That tells you how you compare. So if everybody's failing and you're less failing, you look great. So what we need to do is have metrics that look inward towards LCPS. Where are we? Where are kids on the reading scale? And understand what we need to do individually. I keep reminding people that we were a nation of one-room schoolhouses. It is not that difficult to educate children, and we need to stay away from buzzwords, buzz terms, all these difficult things, and just teach kids to read, understand vocabulary, and learn phonics.
Thank you, Mike. You're doing a great job of keeping your answers to time, and audience, thank you very much. You're doing a wonderful job too, and I appreciate your participation. The next question is a 2-minute question. And this particular one, we will be starting with Erika. What plan would you put into place to be compliant with the new law 22.1-16.8? You won't be asked to requiring school boards to have a policy in place by 1/1/23, by the first of the new year, to give parental notifications of sexually explicit content. And I'm going to repeat that question so that I understand it. What plan would you put into place to be compliant with the new law requiring school boards to have a policy in place by the beginning of the new year to give parental notification to sexually explicit content? Erika, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. First of all, there's already a draft policy that's being worked on, so it's not a singular activity. Certainly there's a group of folks who are already working on that. The other thing I would just say is, as a parent, my experience has been, my children have a big age gap, so I've got 27, 24, and 11, so consecutively I've been an LCPS parent for 20 years. And my experience is that I am notified and have the option to opt out, and we also have the ability to, through Parent View, take a look and see what our children are checking out at the library. So there definitely is involvement with parents. And so, number one, there will be a policy in place. I think the one thing, since I have 2 minutes, I'll just mention is I'm a little concerned about what I'm noticing about the way in which there seems to be certain populations that are categorized as being explicit, or certain types of books that are reflecting certain lived experiences. So, a book, for example, about an LGBTQ family, children's books that talk about children who have 2 mommies or 2 daddies. And I just, want to make sure that as the policies are put in place, they are not unfairly targeting specific populations and equating sexual orientation or gender with explicit material. And I will see you in 15 seconds. Thank you.
Michael, 2 minutes on this question about parental notification for sexually explicit content. 2 minutes, Michael.
So this is one that is very near and dear to me, being that I've been involved in the school board meetings for some time now. I attended a curriculum and instruction committee meeting where the administration is blowing a dog whistle and had a slide up there where they put 1984, Beloved by Toni Morrison, Homer, and some other books that nobody ever said they wanted to contest, and then Lawn Boy, all the way in the corner, just this one book. So the dog whistle is that there are parents that want to ban books. That's not true. And I have to explain this explicitly. It'll be as PG rated as possible, but the books that parents are concerned with are a book like This Book is Gay that has a chapter on anal sex. There's no other way for me to put it. I carry that book with me when I go campaigning in case somebody calls me a book banner. So I can pull it out and say, would you like your daughter to read this, right? I didn't say that we needed to remove books about the contributions of LGBT folks to history, to science, to government. Didn't say that. I said that I don't want a book, that I prefer that the public school system not fund a book specifically with how-to on anal sex in the Simpson Middle School Public Library, which is where it was sitting. So that is the issue. It's not a book banning issue, it's not a book burning issue. It's about where public tax dollars should be spent. And I dare anyone in the audience to explain to me how that topic has any academic relevance to a middle schooler.
And now, Lauren, 2 minutes on this question.
I have a copy of the policy right here. It's policy 5055. It's in the works, and in fact, the department that I work for, literacy, is definitely involved in some of the layers of this. And when I say layers, it is layers. We have multiple means of instructional materials in our classrooms. We have books that we use directly for instruction, for read-alouds, for different parts of assigned literature that kids are asked to read as part of the curriculum. That's one layer. Another layer is classroom libraries, book choice that kids have within the libraries of their classroom. A lot of that is driven by what type of reader they are, what kind of books they want to read, what makes them tick in terms of really wanting to dive into books. And those are available, and along with a guided choice from your teacher, usually. And then there's the libraries where the kids go and check out books. So we have multiple layers here. And I think that that's what my plan would be. My plan would be to look at each layer. As an educator, how does this impact the instructional materials? I agree they should not be explicit, and that's what this policy will defend. I think we need developmental appropriateness in our books. I think we can all come together and say that we do that with movies, we can do that with books. I also think it is vitally important for children to have choice in books. It is what develops a love of reading. It is what can be a gateway. We say they're magic carpet rides. It's a window, it's a mirror. Children see themselves in literature. They learn new things about other cultures and other places and other people through literature, and it is deeply important to their learning. And so for me, as a board member, I would engage the stakeholders. I would engage the parents and make sure they understand how they can view those materials, and I would make sure that they can view those materials, how they can opt out, how teachers would know what is instructional and what is not, and make sure those lines are in place as well, and still offer student choice.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to skip one question on our list. Now we're going to go down to question 6, and this is a 2-minute question, and I guess that will mean that we will begin with Michael on this one. The question is, do you believe that LCPS teaches issues of race in a way that is informative and constructive? How should LCPS view the incorporation of critical race theory, the the 1619 project or other race-related concepts into school practices and curricula. And that's a 2-minute question. Is everyone okay with the question, or would you like to hear it again? Okay, so Michael, let's begin with you. 2 minutes on this question.
So I just want to go over a definition. The definition of theory is a supposition or system of ideas intending to explain something. A theory never becomes a fact. So I completely have no agreement with critical race theory at all. I am Hispanic. I grew up in New York City, had friends of all races, colors, ethnicities. Critical race theory is just a way to divide people. It offers nothing good for children. And if you really want to understand what's going on, you really need to look at the origins of critical race theory, the Frankfurt School in Germany, how it came into the United States as critical legal studies, morphed into critical race theory. Now you have critical gender studies, critical queer theory. So critical insert something theory. These things don't do anything for children. Children don't see color, they don't see race. They see friends, they see toys, they see fun. And so I don't agree with it. Now, that should not be misinterpreted. I think the contributions of all ethnicities need to be accurately recorded in history classes. And if we're not doing that now, which is probably true, we need to figure out how to get accurate, objective historians to put all of this into our history classes so that everyone is represented. I'm a firm believer that we are all Americans. I'm not a Hispanic American. I don't like hyphenated American terms. We are all Americans. We've all contributed to this great country, and we should all be represented, whether it's LGBT, whether it's Black, whether it's Hispanic, Asian, etc. But critical race theory brings nothing good to the table, and the 1619 project is also a grifter project. And if you want to understand that, follow the money.
And ladies and gentlemen, I understand that these questions are ones that you feel strongly about. Please remember tonight's focus is on what the candidates have to say, and there are other venues for reaction as to that. Obviously, you'll be able to vote, but even before that, you'll be able to talk with them a little bit later. So let's please keep our respect for the people who are speaking and just listen to them. Thank you. All right, so now it is Lauren's turn.
Everything that I bring to the board, I want to project out to the classroom. That's where the learning is happening, and that's where the parties are involved. So for this, I think there is a fine line right now between teaching accurate history and learning from it and being reflective individuals. One of the things that I've been through the equity training, you know, as an educator. And one of the things that when I went through it was it allowed me to be reflective of my own experience, and it also made me aware and to think about that not everybody has that path. Now, I knew that already as an educator. We're pretty reflective because we do celebrate and treasure our students of many different backgrounds. So I was surprised when we needed this whole initiative, and I think that's where some of this is stemming from. The issue I have with it is where the rubber meets the road. In that training, there wasn't any specific guidance on what teachers should do or how they should teach these concepts. And I think that's where things can get a little bit fuzzy and where problems can arise. And people can take on different types of instruction. And I do think that we have seen instances of that. And I think as a leader, you have to flush that out and look at systematically where is that happening and how do we deal with that. But I also think that teachers need to be equipped with how to tackle and what is appropriate for students and what do they teach and how do they teach it. And parents need to have that exposure as well. They need to know not just what we're teaching, but how we teach it. I think another thing that has trickled in is we are overly reliant in LCPS on outside vendors. We spend a lot of time allowing people to come in, whether that's PL or PBL or literacy programs or SEL. We have a lot of vendors, and I think that vetting those vendors and bringing in that lens of looking at what we're actually teaching and how we're teaching it is vitally important.
Thank you, Laura. And now, Erika, your 2 minutes begins now.
Great, thank you. So first and foremost, I think it's imperative that we teach full and accurate history and recognize that while, one may not directly experience themselves racism, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist or it's not impacting people every day. So as a public school system, we have the responsibility to teach all of our students, and we also hope for adults that can grow up and get along and be respectful and understand that their experience may not be the same as other people's experiences. And so it is important that we continue on that path of being able to talk about difficult things in history and also current events. I think that even in some of the curriculum as it stands right now, I will often, in our family, this is a conversation. So my husband is originally from Nigeria. We have 3 children together. Their experiences in the world are different from my own, right? If I'm in a place by myself, people don't know that. They say things in front of me about other people that they don't know that my family is Black or has that experience. And so I have this unique experience of having family members who've lived in the world and had a different lived experience than I do. I think just a very recent example, so in 7th grade history, there's a conversation around the westward expansion. So I asked some probing questions about, did they talk about who was there before the expansion happened? And with the first lesson, no, I'll have to follow up and find out, but it is important, again, that we teach that full history. Thank you.
So the next question is a 1-minute question that will be starting with Lauren.
Yeah.
So 1-minute question, Lauren. Please share what you know about LCPS's ability to serve its special needs students. Do you believe they're doing a good job, or what needs to change?
Again, at the 1 minute each time. I work with special needs students. I'm not a special ed teacher, but as part of my literacy work, we are always working in classrooms with diverse learners. So I have direct experience with this, and I started my career working with children with autism. So I bring that lens to the board. Again, rooted in real experience in our LCPS classrooms. This comes up quite frequently when we're door knocking, and it comes up a lot in the work that I do. I do believe that we have lots of room for improvement in Loudoun through our special education process. I think it starts with a clear understanding of how the system works. I have so many people that ask me, like, my child is struggling, what do I do? I think it's just knowledge is power, knowing how to get access to the resources that you need, how to access the child studies program and how to go through evaluation and to get the resources that you need. Many parents are hiring advocates because they feel their children's needs are not met, and we never want families to feel helpless about the needs that their children have.
Thank you, Laura. Erika, 1 minute for you.
Thank you. This is a topic that I've also heard a lot about on the doors from both teachers and families. Teachers who felt like they could use more resources, additional teachers, additional teachers' aides, and families who have felt like the accommodations that they've received aren't necessarily always appropriate for the student's needs. So one example was they got extra time, but what they felt like their student really needed was some help in finding alternative ways to learn and remember content that wouldn't necessarily be remedied just with extra time. So I think that as we move forward into budget planning, good thing about coming in right away is you get to be part of the fall process, is to take a look and see how we are resourced across the county in terms of both staff and other resources that would help to augment this area for our students.
Thank you, Erika. Michael, 1 minute for you.
So I can speak to the topic only as a father of a disabled daughter. She's not on the spectrum, so she gets different services. I will say that my wife and I love our SPED teachers. They've been with Olivia for now 3 years, 3 or 4 years, and they care for her, and they love her, and I don't know what we do without the dedication of SPED teachers. I think that at the end of the day, it all comes down to funding. So I'm not going to claim to be a special education expert. I think I would need to engage the teachers and understand what the needs are. I will say that from an IEP perspective, it's a difficult process. It's hard to understand. It's hard to understand what you can and cannot do, what you can and cannot ask for. So I would say, let's take the ombudsman that was just hired for $161,000 and have that person be a special ed ombudsman.
Okay, we will, help me out here. Did everybody answer this question or did you not?
I think that was the last one.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. My note taking can use some work here. This next one is a 2-minute question, and we are going to be starting with Erika. 2-minute question. Given the social and economic diversity of Loudoun County, how do you believe that LCPS should approach issues of equality and equity in teaching our students? Are LCPS current practices sufficient, and what changes do you believe are necessary? Everybody get that question? Okay, 2 minutes, starting with Erika.
Sorry, okay. Lost a couple seconds there, but so this is very important, and going back to that equality versus equity, that the key piece with equity is that it's very important to understand specifically what each student's needs are and then provide resources and instruction and support that are meeting those needs. That means that, you know, not every student needs the same type of instruction, not every school needs the same level of funding, and as we make decisions about how we are approaching funding, we need to think about that resourcing for schools and making sure that we're addressing any gaps. It is also very important to do this with measurement in mind, so reviewing outcomes by school, taking a look at any discrepancies or disparities in experience and outcomes for students and success, and then providing solutions, whether that's additional resources in the classroom or additional resources for the students and families. I think the other thing in this is, with 34 seconds to go, it's important to recognize, and I think that we, or the school board, has done a very good job, and the superintendent in particular, with the decision to address the facilities with Parkview, looking at a recall for that school. I think it was shocking as a community member to kind of hear about how bad the facilities were there. And it's important that as a county school system, students get an excellent education regardless of which community they're in within our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, 2 minutes for you.
So I think that equity has kind of taken on this cult status, and a lot of folks are buying into it. But if you talk to successful people, namely somebody like Ben Carson, Larry Elder, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, and you ask people how they got to where they are today, they worked hard. They passed tests. They were part of a system of meritocracy where they excelled from others. Barack Obama is an excellent orator. He didn't just become that. He wasn't handed that. He wasn't promoted to the Senate just because he was black. He wasn't president 2 terms just because he was black. Right? This notion that everyone has equal outcomes is a false notion, and it's not based in reality. I struggled in college. Nobody handed me anything. I worked as hard as I could to keep up with other kids so that I can get a degree, right? And that's what I teach my kids. You work hard, you pass tests, you do better than someone else, you get more rewards. When I'm on the gurney, going into heart surgery, and somebody says, which doctor do you want? Do you want the doctor that got into medical school because they were of color or they were a minority? Or do you want the best heart surgeon in the room? I don't care what color, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation that heart surgeon is. I want the one that excelled on the MCATs and graduated top of their class. That's what we're talking about.
And now, Lauren, your 2 minutes begins now.
Touched on this a little bit earlier. When we think about equity, you know, on my platform, I talk about what I would call true equity. I had a college professor once who did a simple example. She poured us all a cup of water, and they were all at different levels. And she said, equality is giving everyone the same thing. And then some were overflowing, and some didn't have enough. Equity is giving each person what they need so that they can achieve. And it stuck with me because as we're going into this, what I fear is that equity is becoming a buzzword. It's a word that is riling people up, and it is something where people are just tuning out now. And I do think that for students, we have to think about their individual needs. It's what I do in my work, it's what teachers do every day. We look at the assessments that we're giving, we look at the curriculum that they have, we look at their background and their home life and the things that are happening with them and the relationships that we have with them, and we take all of those pieces together, all the things that make them who they are, and we celebrate those things, but we also have to dig in and meet the needs, and that's different for every kid. And for me, that's equity. That comes from the heart of our educators who love the kids in their class and who are fighting in the trenches for their outcomes. And I think that it also goes back to, you know, celebrating and being prepared to get to work for all those different kids. And sometimes it's really hard. I'm not going to lie. Listening to the meeting on Tuesday and hearing that 36% of our EL students are not, that's the pass rate for our EL students. That's a hard thing to swallow. We don't have equity if that's the case. We have to address these tough things, and we have to address them through the lens of what is actually happening in our schools with the people who are the players in that. And that is the lens that I will bring on the board, and to me, that is equity.
The next question will be a 1-minute question, and we'll be starting with Michael. 1-minute question from Michael. What rights and authority should LCPS parents and guardians have over the education of their children? And I'm going to repeat that. What rights and authority should LCPS parents and guardians have over the education of their children? 1 minute, Michael.
So I go back to the Code of Virginia 1-240.1. Provides that a parent has the fundamental right to make decisions concerning the upbringing, education, and care of the parent's child. Schools may not abrogate the rights of parents. That's not conjecture, that's not hearsay, that's the Code of Virginia. We are one of several states that actually has that in the Virginia Constitution, parents' rights. Some states don't have that. You can imagine the battle that they're going through. I am adamant that schools don't know better for your child than you do as a parent. Now that doesn't say that parents can come into classrooms and tell teachers how to teach, because they are professionals. They went to school, they know how to teach. But when it comes to content and ideologies and political identities and things like that, parents absolutely have the right to not want that for their children.
And Lauren, 1 minute for you.
15 years ago when I started teaching, it was all about the partnership. The partnership between the parents, the students, and the teachers. This is how you have a successful learning environment. It was encouraged by us to engage parents, to get them to come in, to come alongside of that learning. I still hold to that today. My fear is that in this climate we're trying to augment one or the other, and you know when you have a partnership, if that is happening, that it is going to be out of balance. And to me, it is the students who will pay the price. So yes, teachers need to be respected for what they do. We work hard, we study hard. Most of us have our master's degrees in education, and we are continuing our learning day by day. But parents also, I'm a parent. We have a legal guardianship over our children. We have rights to know what they are learning and to have access to that curriculum. And if we can get back to this partnership and balance, we can do what's best for kids.
Thank you, Lauren. And now, Erika, 1 minute for you.
Great, thank you. I think just to acknowledge that as parents, we are our children's first teachers and we don't stop teaching. I have grown children and sometimes I try to remind myself that they are grown and they don't necessarily need that instruction, and yet there I am providing advice and guidance. And I send my kids to school because I don't think that I could be their teacher for all of their academic subjects, and so I work with their teachers, ask questions. Teachers also approach parents and work with them, and yes, it is a partnership with the teachers to make sure that our students, our children, are getting the best education that they can. As a parent, you advocate for your student, you work with the teachers to make sure that they are learning. If there are questions, I've found all of the teachers to always be very receptive. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next question will be a 1 minute question that will be starting with Lauren. Lauren, how do you believe LCPS should attract, recruit, and retain the best teachers, administrators, and other staff to teach our children? 1 minute, Lauren.
Did I mention I'm a teacher? Our teachers are overloaded right now. If your teachers are still teaching after everything that was put on them through COVID, thank them, give them a hug tomorrow, please. They are overloaded with initiatives. They are overloaded with testing, they are overloaded with disconnected professional development, and they are overloaded with just trying to do what's best for your kids. And so for me, that is the culture right now. The culture is let's add more and not increase the support or the pay. And if you continue to add more with less support, you're going to lose teachers. That's what's going to happen, and we're losing great ones at an alarming rate. And I'm worried about it, but I think we need to establish some cultural things in our school that really go to support teachers. It's teacher pay, it's a superintendent not getting a $30,000 raise when teachers are getting $1.81 in their paycheck a month. We have lots of things that are not in balance, and we need to get this right to keep our teachers.
Thank you, Erika, 1 minute for you.
Great, thank you. I think the first thing is to solicit and then listen to the feedback for how the teachers are experiencing the classroom and how they feel they are or not able to meet student needs. We also, as teachers leave, making sure that there are exit interviews to gather information about why they're leaving. I think that there are assumptions that it's always pay, but I think that I've heard very similar things. Teachers have more added to this plate and nothing taken off, and it's very difficult to keep up with all of the demands. And some people, unfortunately, really talented teachers have left the profession. So we need to figure out what it is that is driving them away and find ways to support them so that they can do what they love, which is working with our children in the classroom and teaching. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, how do you believe LCPS should attract, recruit, and retain the best teachers, administrators, and other staff to teach our children?
I think Lauren was on point, so I agree with what she said, and I think that I firmly believe that there are a lot of very good teachers in LCPS. What I tell people is that we are all victims of an administration. And so teachers are being overloaded with work. Discipline issues are pervasive in the classroom. Things are not coming off the plate. These are all things we all know. Meanwhile, the administration keeps growing and growing and growing. And I think that there are a lot of things that are teacher issues, that are retention issues. I don't think it's solely salary. I think for you to tell me to come to work and be insulted by kids and potentially be assaulted and not be able to react, that's not a very good working environment. That's what I would consider a hostile working environment, right? So teachers need to have things in place to help them thrive, and I think we have a lot of talent in LCPS that's looking to thrive.
The next question is a 1-minute question, and we'll be starting with Erika. Do you believe that the current process for hiring teachers and staff at LCPS schools is fair and equitable? What changes do you feel are necessary to improve the current process? 1 minute, starting with Erika.
So I will just have to honestly claim some ignorance here. I'm not familiar with all of the hiring practices for staff, so I can't really speak to that. I will say that from a general standpoint, in terms of being an employer, it's important that there are consistent practices across the board. So whether that's hiring and interviews or performance management, making sure that a teacher's experience, if they're in one school or another school building, that that's consistent, and that we are providing supervisors and hiring managers with the tools that they need to be able to effectively interview and recruit and retain the best candidates.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Michael, 1 minute for you.
I suspect that Lauren's probably going to have the best answer on this, so I'm going to defer to her. But I think that we need to, I think the criteria, and if it's not included, I think that we need to look at new teachers, especially if they're experienced teachers, based on performance. Metrics of what happened in their classroom, as opposed to just looking at degrees. Degrees are important. I've got a couple of degrees. I know people with more degrees that are, dumber than a box of hair. It doesn't always mean that you're smarter just because you have degrees. But I don't know about the hiring practices with regards to teachers in LCPS. And that's about it. Like I said, I think Lauren's probably the best person to speak on that at the table today.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And Lauren, apparently everyone's looking to you to provide the answer, so now Lauren, it's your turn.
1 minute then.
Yeah. I believe, it's a very rigorous process. You have to submit all your paperwork online, and then, you go through, I think they go through a process. They, in LCPS, they have the practice of, they have minimums for how many people they have to interview before they hire. So I think that that's a good practice. I think there should be a variety of people that can access that position and then have it. Where my issues lie more is, sometimes internally, it feels like those decisions may have been already made. I'll be honest, I have felt like that has happened before with the hiring process. It's sort of like, if you're part of the crew, maybe you might have a leg up with that, and I think I would like to look into that. Another piece of this, I'm going to divert a little bit, is I would like to really look at our de-staffing process. When enrollment drops and teachers have to move schools because there's not enough students there, they don't often get a say in where they're going, and the time frame really can hurt them in that process. And I do not think that that is equitable at this time, and I would really like to evaluate that on the board.
Thank you, Lauren. And ladies and gentlemen, we have time for one more question, and after that, we will have a chance for you to mingle with the candidates. Final question, it is a 1-minute question, and we'll be starting with Michael. Should the fine and performing arts curriculum at LCPS be expanded and enhanced? What are your thoughts on creating a fine and performing arts focused school in LCPS?
I think that would be awesome. I think that the arts are a critical part of education and expanding children's horizons. And if we could develop a magnet fine arts school in LCPS to complement the academies of Loudoun and some of their technical aspects, I think that would be absolutely spectacular. And I'm saddened that I think it was Tuscarora, was not getting funding for a lot of the things that they had wanted, despite there being a $42 million surplus this year. But I think the arts are absolutely important. I didn't learn to play an instrument and I wasn't in drama, but I 100% support putting money into fine arts and music.
Thank you. Lauren, 1 minute for you.
I'm a band kid. I did not play sports, and arts is fundamental to my platform, and it has been from day one. The arts are essential. I think as we talk a lot about mental health in LCPS, that's something right there. Some kids don't play sports, they need the arts, and you find a community there, and it's a really beautiful community. My daughter's in chorus and she plays violin, but the teacher at Tolbert, the music teacher, has actually put that program on her own back to make sure that those kids have access in 4th and 5th grade. We have got to bring the arts back to elementary school before we think about a school. I think that just leadership-wise, there's a lot involved with thinking about a school, and I think it's an awesome idea too, and I want all the things within a $1.6 billion budget. I hope we can have them, but to me, it starts in elementary. We took that away. I want to see that come back. That's where you really start to develop those skills and start to find sort of your lane and your passion, and I think it's essential that we bring that back.
Erika, what are your thoughts on this particular question?
I was also a band kid and a drama kid, and it was some of the best fun. It's a great opportunity to build confidence. Doing theater in high school and improv class was some of the most fun. And it's a great opportunity for students. I do support the expansion of music and fine arts, and I think that it would be well worth our time to look at what it would take to provide that opportunity for a focused school in the high school age range. Yeah.
Thank you, Erika. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your participation and your respect for the candidates. And of course, candidates, thank you so much for your participation.